Let me start by asking you a question. How many of you believe in Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, or unicorns? Now, how many of you believe that Texas has independent school districts? I got news for you, folks. We don't. It's another myth. And I want to tell you something else. Every time the State Board of Education or the Texas legislature comes to town, the I in ISD is under attack. You see, lots of candidates like to talk about local control, but a lot of elected officials have a hard time voting for it. Now, let's be perfectly clear about something. Every time the federal government, the Texas legislature, or the State Board of Education adds another rule or requirement, what they're really saying is they don't trust locally elected school boards, campus leadership, or classroom teachers to do your job. And they can justify it all they want. They can wrap it in all the flowery language they can ever think of. But what they're doing is turning educators into order takers, and it's time for it to stop. Now, for those of you that don't believe me, let me share something with you. Did you know the Texas Education Code uses the word shall 2,000 times and uses the word may 78 times? Does that sound like independence to you? You know, we always hear about unfunded mandates coming from Washington, but there's an old Jerry Jeff Walker song that says, "The pot can't call the kettle black." And Austin is just as bad as Washington on pushing unfunded mandates on our local independent public schools. Now, just a few months ago at the State Board of Education, we had testimony on the new STAR test that we all love so much. And when there was a superintendent testifying about his concerns, and one of my colleagues asked him, "Don't you have enough local control already?" Seriously? This is the kind of top-down attitude that is killing our public schools. And it's time to go to websites like teachthevote.org to find out which candidates are truly with us and which ones are giving us lip service just long enough to survive the next election. Now, another mandate I want to talk to you about is the uniform school start date. You know how we got that? The tourism industry came to the Texas legislature and they sold them something called a traditional summer. And they gift wrapped it in that because they wanted us to all be misty-eyed with our memories of our summer. But what they really wanted was an easier time running theme parks. So the legislature mandated when our public schools start to help the theme parks. Now, I'm sorry, but our public schools need to be first, not last, when it comes to setting policy in the Capitol. Now, some people want to say that I don't support accountability because I support local control. I do support accountability. But our schools need to be accountable to local communities first, Austin second, and Washington, D.C. third, not the other way around. And speaking of accountability, our children, especially our ninth graders, are not guinea pigs. We need to stop subjecting them to everybody's experiment, all cloaked in the name of accountability. Now, to be fair, the test isn't the problem. The problem is the stakes riding on it and what the legislature and TEA does with it. And that is sucking the soul out of every classroom in the state of Texas. In my opinion, too many elected officials are treating our children like they're contestants on the TV show Survivor. They throw new and bigger challenges at them with fewer and fewer resources. We need to start treating our elected officials like they're contestants on the TV show Celebrity Apprentice and tell them, "You're fired." Now, for those of you that don't think we can make a difference, I've got one example. It's called Mothers Against Drunk Driving. They are a shining example of what parents can do when we get energized, organized, and mad. And it's time to get mad, and it's time, just like the weather, it's time to turn up the heat. Now, if you only remember one thing I say today, I want you to remember this. Our children do not attend red schools or blue schools. They attend their local public school. And what they want is a quality education, and what they need is elected officials that will drop the partisan rhetoric at the door and work together to do what's right for our schools, because this isn't a Republican issue, it's not a Democrat issue, it's a Texas issue. God bless you, and thank you for coming.